Had some nice chats last night. Wanted to keep going with this Discord thing. So what we are doing this morning is going to what's called the Chatterbox, which is a pretty cool kind of Discord server where let me show it actually. I am. You sort of people just gather and chat. There's sort of chill VCs and stuff where people just sort of chat about all sorts of very weird things. It's generally a really nice group of people. It seems like it's been growing really fast. And a guy I'd met on one of the street epistemology servers that I got on with quite well was a mod there. And he said, why don't you run a session? Like, why don't you run one of these stages? And I've never used the stage function before in Discord. So thought, that'd be a fun way to do it because I've been thinking for a while about running workshops. It's what I do for a living. So essentially it's giving away work. I work with people on developing how they speak. Not as in speech pathology, which is immediately what people think with that, but how could you persuade somebody? How could you, if you found yourself trying to convince somebody, a stakeholder at work that you needed more budget for something, how could you do that? Or how could you find yourself in a sort of pitted debate on Christmas with a extremist uncle and manage to have that conversation in a way that is likely to be effective? So the idea is very soon we're going to be starting up a stage, and I'm going to be going there. I won't have anybody popping up on the screen for the stage, nor will they see me, but I thought it would be a fun and interesting way to run a session. See if I can manage doing the moderation. I do have some questions about whether people will just come in and troll. Which I think is a thing that happens. If there's not any skin in the game, you're not paying to run a workshop. Your manager hasn't told you need to get there. Well, what's stopping you just being a prick about it? So it'll be interesting to see that. See how the arguments work. I want to have a disclaimer at the beginning that I deliberately will encourage people to take these conversations into areas that might trigger people, and I don't use that in a sort of derisive way. But yeah, it's the goal or the fun is often in not the goal is in upsetting people, but the goal is to go to a topic that might upset somebody and then not upset them while you're there. Share your views with them while you're in a space that they might be inclined to be like, get him, he's a Nazi, but instead go, actually, I see your point there. I can understand why you're worried about the ethnic shift and the cultural shift in where you're talking about, and then find that bit, because a lot of those discussions are so broken because we immediately assume if somebody disagrees with us, we're wrong. So I've just joined the stage now. There'll be a bit of getting set up. Okay, Ryan's there in the stage. Haven't used these stages before. Oh, request to speak. I got to do that. What do I have to do? I got to get chat there and not there. Try and pull these other ones up. Okay, right. Okay, so we are there. Just do a test to make sure the chat bot is working, and it is not. Let's test it again. It's been doing this. Okay, it has come up. Good. So that should work. Now, what am I looking for? So Ryan's got the stage. Hello, Ryan.
Hey.
G'day, mate.
Up on stage.
Oh, did it not? It didn't. I didn't see that. Maybe I missed it. I'll go request to speak again. Just says for me, request to speak or exit quietly. Accept. I see. Now I can accept. I'm on the stage.
Sweet. Okay. Are you able to see all the text channels? Ask to come up, questions.
Sure.
Text chat.
Yeah. Should I open them all separately or something? Or text chat, how to argue questions?
People will be able to type in them.
Okay. So I should just keep clicking between them to look for those?
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, whichever ones you want to look at.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, I'm pretty much going to let you run the event and everything. So.
Sure thing. So we should just wait a bit for people to get here?
What?
We should just wait a bit for people to get here, I guess?
Well, I haven't sent out the announcement yet. We're getting set up.
Cool.
I'm going to give you the event host role so that you can bring people up and kick people off and stuff like that.
Sure thing.
There you go. So now you have the shield.
Ooh.
And now I'm going to set this stage to open. Open it to the public, and then I'll send out the announcement.
Rightio. Awesome. How fun. I've got no idea if this is going to work. I was like, can it? It might. I don't know.
Okay, announcements.
Morning skin. So I want to be a bit higher energy, so I'm going to stand up. Good to see you again, Rumpelstiltskin. I'll post that Discord if you want to join. Oh, Supreme came in and then was like, nope, this doesn't look good.
Yeah, I'll get it. Internet.
Oh, that's what I also want to do. Gonna get the chat up so we know whose name it is. I'm sure there's a better way to do that.
Set up the announcement. Announcement just went out.
Okay.
And
oh, now we got some people in here.
People to get in here.
There we go. Oh, Rumpelstiltskin's joined. G'day, Rumpelstiltskin.
I think your audio may be a little low, or
A little
it might
low?
be me.
Sure, I can jack that up.
Okay.
Input volume up. Am I sounding good now? I can also probably bring the mic more in front of my mouth.
Yes, that is good.
Good. What are we looking?
Can you still hear? Say something.
Hello. Mic check levels.
Okay. Yes.
Do I sound like a pro when I say mic check levels?
You do. Welcome, everybody. We're just about to start.
Right, I'm not able to find this one there. Duh. Okay, I'm not able to get the chat to come up on my screen. Cool. I can read it though, still off the Discord screen. So
Yeah.
should I give a bit of an intro? We wait a bit for a few more people.
Sure, yeah.
Give the gist of it.
Go ahead.
All right. So Ryan and I, we were chatting in the Street Epistemology Discord, and then I stumbled onto the Chatterbox one, and Ryan suggested, like, hey, why don't you run a session for us? Why don't you do one of those stages? And thought it sounded like an interesting challenge. Then was trying to think of what to do, and I think the Discord is really cool as a place where people can gather and disagree vehemently. Like the debates I've heard on, as Ryan knows, I'm utterly obsessed with chatting to flat earthers at the moment. So chatting with flat earthers, I've also started listening to the sort of, what are they called? Presuppositionalist apologetics. So the people who argue that unless you believe in God, you're not able to know anything. Hearing all sorts of fierce political debates about all sorts of trans issues and whether Trump had the election stole from him. And it's quite similar to the work I do. I work with people on how they speak and convince other people, and use a bunch of these tools that I've stolen from all around the place. The main one being one that's very similar to improv. If anybody's ever done improv, you'll recognize this, which is to use yes and, to agree with the sense or the gist or the sort of what's wholesome or reasonable or accurate about what somebody else is saying, and use that as a platform to build agreement rather than disagreement. So the idea is you have a staunch discussion with somebody, a debate with somebody about what you think to be the case, which is totally at odds with what they think to be the case, but the whole time you're trying to figure out where you can agree, what things you can agree on. And so when Ryan asked me, hey, what do you want to run? I thought, this could be a fun one to see if this works in a Discord setting. And the thought I had was, I'll introduce you to the idea of this as a game. And then we can pull people up here to the stage who can kind of have who can have a crack at playing it. And the way you play it's pretty simple. And that is pick a topic, or so anybody can put a topic that they'd be happy to talk about. I guess we'll put it in text chat, how to argue, or maybe ask to come up. I don't know. This is just the pre-sub. Yes. This sounds like I usually argue with pre-subs. Yes. And that's an interesting thing. I found myself with pre-subs the other day where they're like, how can you know anything? I'm like, that's right. I don't know that I can know anything. And it finds it a much more successful conversation than when I hear a lot of other people go at it, which is T-jump or other people where they sort of get to this point where they end up in an argument. Still not going to be 100% effective. I'm not going to pretend to you if you use these tools, you're going to change people's minds. People's minds are very difficult things to change, and largely they change them themselves and in private. The idea is, though, if you can use these tools, you can manage your own dissonance. And if you can manage your own dissonance, you'll better manage their dissonance or influence their dissonance. I think people know, don't we? Most people present get the gist about dissonance because it's a fairly core concept to this whole idea of agreeing with people. Do we? Or should I explain it, do you reckon, Ryan? I think you would get it.
Oh, yeah, do it or.
So the idea of cognitive dissonance, well, it's actually, no, it's worth explaining because so many people describe cognitive dissonance in a way that it just fundamentally isn't. They're wrong about it. A lot of people think that cognitive dissonance is when you hold two contradictory ideas. So you might be pro-life, but you're pro-death penalty or pro-war. And they go, well, that's cognitive dissonance. It's like, no, it's not really. If you were to point out that inconsistency to somebody, that would likely cause cognitive dissonance. But just holding competing views is something we do all day long, every day, without experiencing dissonance. Dissonance is a sense of uncomfortableness, a kind of clanging behind our ears that makes us be like, I don't like how this feels. This doesn't sit with me. So it might cause a sudden compulsion to disagree, just sort of blurt no in the middle of somebody else speaking, or, immediately bat one fact back with another fact because we want to relieve it as quickly as possible. So for the large majority of people, they don't actually notice that they're experiencing the dissonance. A lot of that process happens largely subconsciously. They don't have this thing of, I don't like how that feels, therefore I will make a conscious decision to bat it back and disagree. We'll do a lot of it subconsciously. We'll go, well, that person's a prick, or that person's, of course they'd say that they're a da-da-da. And a lot of those ways we will reduce or quell that dissonance is what we describe as cognitive biases. So, sort of confirmation bias is a great one where we use it to quell the dissonance. Maybe I get stuff wrong. I have a theory that we need to name the other. I have a position that we need to name the other side. That if we've got dissonance on one side, we need to look at what the other side is, which I would call assonance, because it's the opposite. And assonance is that feeling you get when you hear somebody speaking and you go, oh, they sound really smart. They sound like they know stuff. And then while they're speaking and after you've had the thought, oh, this person seems smart and knows stuff, they say, they express a view that you also hold deeply. And you're like, yeah, I know, right? That's assonance. That's that sense of this wholesome, fulfilling, I'm right, you're right. It feels fantastic. And the more I feel that assonance with somebody, the more I'm going to want to meet my mind to theirs. So if I'm feeling a lot of assonance towards somebody, I go, wow, they're clever. We agree on a lot of different issues. They hold ideas well and express them well, and they seem like a logical person. And then we find some bit where we're like, oh, that is a bit off. Okay, then we have a slight disagreement about, tariffs or skilled in immigration. We're more likely to then change our view. So the idea of this is a session is almost like a workshop where you can practice this, where I'll give you the tools, you can practice it on one another in the session. I might sort of pause and moderate and give feedback so we can spot where it's working and where it's not. You can give feedback to one another as well, with the idea that you just go off and practice this game afterwards. You can go into sort of the presuppositionalist servers and chat with them and see how it works for you. It's a quite fun game. So that's the gist of what we're doing. The game works like this. One person steps up to the stage, says that they want to hold a position. A willing interlocutor can step up and be the person who's going to disagree with them. Now, what's important here is you don't actually need to hold the view that you're presenting, nor do you need to disagree with the view you're disagreeing with. In fact, it can sometimes be fun to get up and argue something that is totally contrary to everything you hold to be true, because it's fun to sort of to practice in that way. One person is going to be bound by the rules. The other one is going to be unbound. The person who is bound by the rules is the person who is presenting their worldview. So if I were to get up and I were to say, it is acceptable or preferable that we start transitions for people who want to transition, it is acceptable and preferable that we start it before they've gone through puberty. And the other person would get up and their job is to disagree with me. My rules that I am bound to are these. I must accept and add. So if they say children aren't yet able to make decisions that they should be bound to by life, I can't go, yeah, but the parents are the ones making the decisions. I need to go, you're absolutely right. Children at that age shouldn't be bound by decisions they make at that age. Probably also effective to add to that a bit. I know I did some silly things when I was a kid. And then the crucial bit is don't follow that with the word but, which is super hard, way harder than you will think it is. You're probably sitting there going, I can give this a crack and I'll nail it. And maybe you will. But if you're like me and anybody else, you really struggle. I've been teaching this stuff for 5 years and I still regularly rejoin with but. It is the weirdest, hardest compulsion to break. So that's basically the game. How do you say yes and rather than but? And we'll explore it pretty quickly and it will become apparent how difficult it is. That's the main rule. What I want people to do if they're listening is maybe we'll use one of these text channels or something to spam. If you hear, people are already playing the game in chat. Maybe spam chat. No, so if you're the interlocutor, you're the one who can do it. If you hear the word but, you can go but, and you just repeat the word, and their job is going to be to go back and agree with you again. That's the main rule we're going to hold people to. The other rules that will make things easier are these. Let me just copy them, and I'll place them in the text chat that you're using, text chat how to argue. And the other ones are, try to find the middle ground. Could both of your points be valid? Could it be true that transitions are more successful before puberty, and before puberty is a bad time to be making a decision? Could both of those propositions be true? And I would say what you will find is staggeringly more common than you expect is, yeah, absolutely. Not only could they be, they regularly are. We are regularly both right, and we're weighing two things that aren't necessarily on opposing sides. The other one that can be really good is appeal to shared values or something, or some goals with unifying phrases. What I mean by this is, look, we want what's best for kids at the end of the day. That's a unifying phrase, not a unifying phrase where I'm accusing you of not adhering to that. So sometimes I was having a debate a while back with a feminist friend of mine, and she said, well, I just think women should be treated like humans. Now, that's a unifying phrase, but she was throwing it at me like, you don't think that. This is a reasonable thing that everybody should agree with, but you don't. That's not the goal of this. It's to go, where can we get back to middle ground, or where can we return to a base premise from which we can both build agreement? You can adjust.
Should we bring some people up? And
yeah, sure.
Maybe go through
yeah,
more
excellent.
stuff later.
Yeah, let's do it. That's a great idea. Also, thanks for giving the
I'll
feedback.
bring 2 people up here. Hey, Bob.
G'day, Bob.
I gotta get my.
Oh,
a second.
So Bob's
You're coming in pretty low.
Hello.
All right, got Bob.
Hey, now we can hear you.
G'day, Lara. We got Lara.
Laura, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear us.
Cool.
I understand what it being like being like I had friends that was bullying me like how I've been arguing with them.
How old you are, Laura?
Yes, I'm here.
How old are you?
11.
Okay. The
Might
server is
be a bit
15
young.
plus, so thank you for coming. We're gonna to ask you to go now. Thanks. Okay, little man, did you want to speak? Or
Nigga.
okay.
This
Oh,
is
he's
more
banned.
difficult than I think. Just people want to put in text chat what they would be willing to talk about. I think that somebody was talking about pre-subs before. They can have an argument
So-
about that. If they want.
May I
Raise your
contribute
hand.
to this?
Sure.
What you're talking about, I find extremely interesting because we had a fellowship that wasn't based on debate. It was based on and more. So we're taking our perspective, presenting it like a dish. And I might be talking about one subject that activates another individual about a completely different subject. So when we look at the notion of wanting to put our point across at any cost, we're not considering that our cup is full. And for us to learn more, we have to empty it, and empty it by listening to a different perspective. If you decide to reject the idea for yourself after you've heard it, but acknowledge that that same model is beneficial for somebody else, it allows us to have unity and diversity. I believe what you're pointing out is a control mechanism that we're trying to assert over other people,
Yes.
which, in my opinion, it should be turned internally, and we start realizing nobody can make us angry, nobody can frustrate us. We're the one that gives them the power
Absolutely.
to get in our heads.
Yeah, absolutely. If we go
Can you
looking.
hear us?
G'day, Mafia.
So yeah, so this is the power of green. Alright? It's like crazy. You know what I mean?
You raise your audio. You're coming in very low.
Like the power of agreeing in like arguing by agreeing is like very, very impactful.
Okay. Do you have your input all the way up?
You picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, absolutely.
You are very hard to hear. Can you please raise your input?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Can you hear me now? I'm pretty good.
It's getting better. Yeah, move your mouth as close as you can. Okay,
So-
are you guys?
So the power of agreeing is crazy. You know, it's just like very impactful.
We're
It's,
gonna
like,
run through the
crazy.
workshop now, Mafia. So are you ready to
Uh,
do the workshop with Bob?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
So-
do the
Okay,
workshop.
cool.
Who,
Awesome.
who
Eggshells,
between
you
Bob?
wanna?
Yeah. Who between Bob and Mafia would like to present us a proposition, something you want to get the other to agree with?
I'm okay either way.
The power of video games.
The power.
Very
of video games.
impactful.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Do we have anybody else?
did he just? Crit can step up here. I can see Crit, and I know Crit believes the Earth is flat. That could be a fun one to do. believes the Earth is flat.
Mafia,
Sorry.
we weren't discussing video games or the power of video games, so please don't troll.
Hi.
Okay.
Sorry to
Hello.
I just joined in. Can you explain what's going on?
Sure. The idea is we want to run a workshop of how to argue by agreeing. So one person's job is going to be to present a proposition. They can choose what that is. Anybody can write in the text for how to argue what they would like to present, and then their job is going to be to argue that position by agreeing with somebody who disagrees with them.
You lost me at agreeing with somebody who disagrees with them.
I lost you there, did I? Was it that it was poorly explained or sounds counterintuitive?
Counterintuitive.
Yeah.
You can't use but.
So
You can't agree with somebody and then say but.
exactly.
For example,
Oh, okay.
Is there anything, Temius, is there anything you hold to be true that is in some way important to you? The sort of the deep value that you would hope other people would hold and they don't or don't appear to?
Yeah. The fact I believe that the definition of cultural appropriation is completely incorrect.
Awesome. Okay, now we've got one. Great. You can present that to us. Bob's going to argue with you. He's unbound by any rules. Your only rules are when he disagrees with you, you've got to say yes and. I can coach you through the first bit because it's confusing at first.
Oh, it's
but it'll make
improv,
sense.
bro. I take drama classes. It's great.
Yeah. Well, it's very similar to drama classes. You'll find it really similar to just your basic improv yes and game.
Yep, sure.
So give us your base idea. Start with your spiel.
Well, the definition of cultural appropriation is the object of stealing one's culture and using it for one's own need. I should pull it up so I don't sound as dumb, but oh well. And the definition, it gets watered down over the centuries. Let's say you could even talk about how the Chinese first created gunpowder, right? And they used that to celebrate fireworks, and that was a beautiful celebration. But once it got taken over by the English used that for weaponry. And then it got taken over by someplace down south, and then that was used to create bombs and more damage. So you could call that cultural appropriation, but you also couldn't call that cultural appropriation because they took it and used it for themselves. So
Right.
the definition needs to be completely overlooked and changed.
So it sounds like the position is that cultural appropriation needs the definition is to be changed. What are your thoughts, Bob? Do you disagree? That's your job.
I do disagree because it's semantic of words. Words are not real. It's irrelevant what we say if it's not backed by behavior and action. So you might come and not want to have that title put onto that culture dissonance or whatever you want to look at it. But at the end of the day, why do you think you want to change that? What do you think triggers you about it?
I think that people are mistaking stealing of one's culture for just evolution. Let's say if I were to go really pop culture, it's very strange for a white girl to wear box braids because that's part of African American culture due to slavery. As if you didn't know, they, from what I've read, would braid in rice that they stole from their owners in order to survive, and braid in the tracks to get to the Underground Railroad. And that's a very intense part of their history, and it's a very strong point of cultural appropriation when somebody not of that ethnicity and history comes in and decides to take that for themselves. And it's causing a lot of dispute because people are confusing racism and cultural appropriation and evolution altogether, and it's causing conflict.
So I can understand your position on the braids are cultural appropriation is that, yes, they are. It's just that other things such as Chinese, with their development of gunpowder and fireworks then being adopted or used around the world is not cultural appropriation. Is that right? Have I got that right about what you're saying?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So I'll keep playing the disagree that you can agree with, and I'll say they're both the same thing.
Okay.
Well, what you said
I
was
said
that
they're both the same thing.
right.
You both
Am I
think they
not?
are or are not cultural appropriation?
I'm saying they're both the same thing, so it's impossible to pick between them. Now you need to agree with me, but go back to your point.
I'm allowed to agree with you and go back to my point?
You've got to. That's the rules.
Okay. I do agree with you that they are the same thing, and that's why we do need to change the definition of cultural appropriation, because things are blending together when they shouldn't be.
Excellent. Really nicely done. So this is the first demonstration of exactly what we're aiming for. I disagree and go, they're the same thing, whereas it appears you're picking the difference. And you then go, I agree they're the same thing. That's why we need to do the thing. So perfect. Great.
Lovely.
So carry on then. What is and what is not then? What do we need to do to change the definition?
Everything's very contextual and historical and political, because everything goes back with the World War I and World War II, and it's all tied with history. And obviously you can't choose that, oh, one person decides what is and or is not racism.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that it should go depending on what culture first owned that first, let's say, thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say indigenous peoples.
Check your DMs.
Yep.
No, that was my cell phone. It's cool. Yeah, just ignore that. Let's say indigenous or natives or les métis are, if you guys didn't know, métis are indigenous mixed with European descendants. And in their culture, it's normal to wear feathers in their hair to represent very high status. I'm not picking that up. To represent, let me hang up on that. Give me a second.
And so your job, while she's just grabbing that, Bob, is you can disagree at any stage. You can jump in the middle of her speaking and disagree with anything, even if you don't really disagree with it.
If you have anything to disagree, I can continue if you don't.
Yeah. It's more about practicing the tool.
Oh my god. Okay. And it's in their culture to have very beautiful feathers in their tribal leaders only. Mm-hmm. And let's say in the early 2000s, it was popular in women's fashion to have little pretty feathers braided into your hair. And we as white girls would do that to their hair. And one could and could not consider that cultural appropriation because, as you said, it does blend together. It's the same thing. So the person who originally, or my point is, let's say in this scenario, natives who first started this beautiful tradition should decide.
The people should decide themselves. Right. I disagree with that because I think...
I'm so sorry. Please continue.
I disagree with that because I think you could just get anybody to disagree with anything else and you could use that to damage people's lives somewhat arbitrarily. So I could get in the ear of some member of some uncontacted tribe or something and go, hey, pick this thing that you do, and suddenly you can now stop other people from doing that thing. And if I got them to agree with that premise by saying, hey, get at them and demand reparations or payment or something like that, and then I could convince any person from those kind of cultures to call cultural appropriation and then shut down my opposition. So I could use it like a hammer that I could wield and it would be unwieldy.
That's true. And both, let's say the guess that I came up with a solution also causes conflict, but the original, I'm not allowed to say but.
Yeah, nicely done. Well caught.
It causes conflict. And the original definition also causes conflict.
Right.
So we have to come up with a solution in order to disperse this.
So what's this? It's so great. So let's just pause there. Do we get the gist of it? We've got also one objection that's come up from the chat. People shouldn't be able to eat rice or corn because they are being racist by appropriating another culture.
Not eat rice or corn, just braid rice or corn into their hair. I'm not allowed to say but. Sorry.
So it's close to it. Not eat rice or corn. Right. So do we still have Bob here? Let me go back to see it. No. So somebody else has got their hand up. Let me pick somebody else out who wants to pop up. Visitor, non-member. All right, you can come up. AKQW.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh goodness, how old are you?
Assalamu alaikum.
Right, maybe I should pick people who are actually here. Julian. Goodness, is my Discord hung?
Yes, bro. Yes. Oh.
Right. Julian, invite sent. Julian's not popping up again. Keep going. I'll just argue with you. I'm not understanding. The main problem I have here is I don't understand how you would draw a distinction between putting rice in your hair versus using what's the line between fireworks, gunpowder, and putting rice in your hair. Nor am I clear on the value of doing so. Like, it doesn't seem to me that there is a clear sort of cost in not doing it or advantage in doing it, in deciding that putting rice in your hair is a bad thing that should be stopped.
You're right, it is not clear, and that's the problem in the first place. And we're probably not qualified in order to redefine a word that has so much power nationally and historically. But nope. Hold on, fact check.
Well caught.
Fact
Well
check.
caught though. Well caught. Most people just chug on past saying "but" and don't notice.
Since we're not qualified, if you live in a democratic society, then we would believe in appointing somebody who would be intelligent enough or of qualification to make that decision for us.
Okay, and then on the issue of what's the cost? What's the cost if a white girl puts rice in her hair?
Conflict and aggression.
The cost is conflict?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We've now got Julian up. Julian, you get the gist of the game?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes. How are you?
Good. Do you get the gist of what we're playing?
Okay, sounds good. So I have got this platform yesterday, but in the reality, I speak a lot of English. I just wanted to improve my English skills. So I here to listening and improve my English.
Okay, awesome, excellent. All right. So yeah, you're welcome to listen in if you'd like. I've just had somebody very eagerly asked to step up to the stage, so I'm going to invite Dead Panda too. You're welcome to as well. We'll have Julian and Dead Panda both being the peanut gallery to challenge Temius's views about cultural appropriation. We've got Dead Panda now. G'day, mate.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hey,
So
I've only been in here for a few minutes listening, and I've heard a couple of rules mentioned. So I was hoping maybe you could run me through the rules really quick, so I don't step on any toes here.
They're more like guidelines. The idea is Temius is the one who's bound by some rules, and their job is to listen to us be disruptive. Well, not disruptive, but argue with her, and her job is to use these rules to say yes and to agree where she can with us disagreeing with her. So it's essentially she's practicing this game of persuading us.
Fair enough. That sounds like a lot of fun for her, actually.
Yeah, it is. So Temius, the question we sort of left on before inviting two more people up to the stage was, what is the cost? What is the cost to somebody whose culture is appropriated?
Conflict and aggression was what just left off with.
Sure.
Okay, so what I would ask you is if we are saying that the cost of cultural appropriation is that there may be conflict, how far back would we be willing to go down the chain of events before we would say that someone's culture is intrinsic to that person or to the natives of a certain area, or would we eventually we would have to say that some aspect of these interactions are biologically driven? I would think. How far are you willing to go back in order to define a culture that might be appropriated?
As far back as the books go, because imagine if you were on that end, and over the generations, that's what was happening.
So you would say at the beginning of written history, that's when the rules were set?
No, Sorry.
So there,
So
if
both
it's a
kind of
confusion in
describes-
if it's a confusion in Temius, if it's a confusion in what you were saying, you can say something simpler like, "Let me clarify what I meant," or something. This is a really useful tip in
Okay.
conversation too, which is if you say something, the other person misunderstands it. The misunderstanding may well be the other person's fault, but it's an impossible thing to tell. It's just simpler and more functional, I find, to go, it must be my fault that you misunderstood, and I'll express it again. Because again, it reduces the dissonance of you didn't understand what I was saying, you're changing what I'm saying. Go for it.
Yeah. Okay, let me try to clarify.
And also, yeah, Dead Panda, can you jack up your volume levels quite a bit, please?
Yeah, one moment.
Yeah, give me time to like reboot my brain.
Okay, are we better now?
Yeah, sounds a bit better, just a bit higher if you can.
Yeah, we can just individually lift him up ourselves.
So the question from Dead Panda sounded like it was, how far back down the chain do we go to decide something belongs to one person or another? Is that right, Dead Panda?
I lost him.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
think we lost
hearing
him.
it at all at the moment.
Okay, how about now?
Good. Yep.
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
All right, so yeah, I guess what I'm trying to ask, and I'll try and use way less words. I'm pretty verbose. When we're talking about cultural appropriation, I understand the concept. I understand. I believe the grievance perceived, and I understand the impetus behind calling people out for cultural appropriation. What I don't understand is how you determine what is cultural appropriation, and I believe the mechanic, for lack of a better term, that I'm pointing to and inquiring about is, how do you determine which of these aspects? So if we're saying like braided hair, or if we're saying rice, or if we're referring to any sort of dress or way of speaking, how do you designate that or connect it to a culture? How would you say that rice is connected to one particular culture when another culture may well have endemically consumed rice since the beginning of their written history as well?
The subject of rice wasn't eating rice, it was braiding rice into one's hair to avoid starvation.
So
Just a
I want to make sure I'm understanding. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're specifically speaking about hair, and you're saying anything outside of hair is not a realm in which you're interested in discussing.
but I can't say no. I would like to clarify what I was saying.
Good.
When you referred to rice being used by other cultures, I referred to rice in my scenario. Of course, your scenario also works, of how slaves would braid rice into their hair. And hypothetically, if that became a trend on social media and people were doing that, I could see that maybe some people would see that as cultural appropriation. But obviously, we can't decide that. We'll need somebody more qualified than us to choose that. And the only time I feel that we would need to call somebody for a certain contextual situation was when conflict would arise in order to put out the fire, because obviously it's impossible to cut down the entire forest to prevent forest fires, and it shouldn't be. But you can have like your own little squadron kind of just run out and try to find as many forest fires in order to prevent conflict. Because in our day-to-day in social media, if you guys didn't know, the algorithm works so you only see what you like. Therefore, your political, historical, moral opinions get gassed up, and those opinions become very, very strong, and hypothetically either extremely right-wing or extremely left-wing. And those create intense conflict once they crash. That's why our democracy is a little bit crumbling. But that's why I'm saying since cultural appropriation also focuses on a main factor of race and culture and sex and sexual orientation, that tied with social media and accentuating and strengthening our views create larger forms of conflict that we need to find some form of resolution for before things get out of hand.
So,
So
if
just
this is
just
part of a
pause.
broader-
You can just respond in just a second, Dead Panda. I also wanted to point out I brought 2 more people up to the stage who can sort of join the disagreeing peanut gallery. If you're in the disagreeing peanut gallery, well, that's some of the game as well. Is like, how can you handle a lot of people disagreeing with you? And if the people in the disagreeing peanut gallery want to start using the rules, you can, but you are not bound by them. So you can go, that's bullshit if you want. Excuse my language for anybody under 15 listening, who shouldn't be, who shouldn't be here, according to me, and we can argue about that at another time. So yeah, Mark, Alex, Mark's asking me to unmute him, but I've checking the mute thing here, and it's not unmuted. It's unmuted. So keep trying that. Go ahead with what you were saying, Dead Panda.
Yeah, so this
Yeah,
is really a part of a broader discussion about the cultural discourse or the socio-political discourse. Would you, first of all, I guess I would have to say that I completely disagree that these algorithms are designed to show people things they like. What they're meant to do, by and large, is to drive engagement. Sometimes that means showing people what they are expected to like. More often than not, especially on a platform like Twitter, you probably agree that it's meant to show you things that drive engagement, make you want to click on it, make you want to respond to it, make you want to share
May
it.
I add in something quickly? I don't have Twitter, so I don't know what you're talking about in reference to Twitter.
Okay, this does happen on Facebook as well. Yeah,
Nope.
presumably-
Alright, guys.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Wait, who's talking? Me?
Yep.
Sure, go for it.
Oh, shit. Alright then. Not gonna lie, I didn't listen to a word any of you said. But I want to be.
Okay. We don't need him then. Part of this game. So part of this game, Temmie, is you're doing really well at this. So I'm going to take it up a notch before we then clear the stage for somebody else to get on, because you're doing really well at this using an and tool. So the next one to practice for you is copying other people's words exactly. And so the toughest rebuttal I can think of to this position is, if it's going to require a higher authority to tell me whether I'm culturally appropriating or just using someone else's technology, if I require another authority to do that, if I cannot have a rule that I can apply, like a rule of thumb, which I know is about wife beating and stuff, but let's just use it anyway, that I can apply at my meat level where I'm, running a business or doing something and deciding what decorations to put up, then it is not a reasonable rule to expect me to follow, because every other rule we expect people to follow, they should know where they're speeding before they're speeding because we put up a speed sign. So if we don't have a clear rule to do it, my argument against yours would be we shouldn't use it at all unless you can give us a simple heuristic.
Could you clarify a little bit?
Sure. If I'm about to put up some decorations for a festival, and I'm not able to tell before putting up the decorations if those decorations would be cultural appropriation or not, because what you were saying is we would need an authority to decide these things. If I don't have a rule that I can decide before that, and I've got to keep going, hey, authority, are these colors and things okay? And somebody goes, no, the Aztecs use them. That's not a functional rule for me to follow, because I would have to call into an authority every time I wanted to put up some things or braid my hair differently or do something like that. And if it's not a rule I can use on the spot, it's not a reasonable rule to apply.
Yeah, you're right. We need to find something beforehand, like a road, as you were saying, speed signs have to be put beforehand before an actual car crash occurs. We need to find, I was thinking through democratic maybe not parties, but democratic methods, finding a way, sure, do our best in order to stop these intense signs of a cultural appropriation. But I was going to say you are right. I was going to say but you are right. That was what I was
so you can do that. Yeah, you can go, but your idea is right. That works. Yeah, it's just about reducing the dissonance of going, your idea is valid. But, very nicely done.
Yeah,
so
okay.
So very nicely done, Temius. There's bits of feedback or last thoughts from Dead Panda.
Again, I believe I've missed so much of the beginning of this that I don't quite understand necessarily the position that is really being defended here or argued for. But I think you're obviously doing a really great job of attempting to adhere to the rules and trying to improve your rhetoric.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Very nicely done. Thank you for taking the stage, Temius. Now, let me check for who else wants to put up their hand to speak. And who would next like...
By the way,
Go on.
I was extremely sorry for interrupting. I did not mean to raise my hand. I was completely clueless. I meant to say I couldn't find an opportunity to leave without it sounding pretty disrespectful. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
I was trying to leave and I was just there waiting for everyone to finish. I'm so sorry.
So
Have a
that's
good one.
okay.
It's okay.
All right, so let me see who else has got their hand up. Also put in the chat what you would like to discuss. Or did you have a position, Dead Panda? Do you want to have a crack at it? Because you've only had a crack at disagreeing, and Temi yes, can take the other position. Tamias, beg your pardon, can take the other position.
You should be a voice actor. Woof.
I was once long ago.
Oh,
I agree. It's borderline hypnotizing at this point.
Thank you very much.
I know, it's beautiful.
Flattery will get you everywhere. I'm going to add that to the list. Compliment them.
Got it.
I suppose if we're still talking on the same subject, or did you want to?
Sure, yeah. Staying on the same topic's fine.
Yeah, I would probably stake the position that that attempting to enforce any sort of position against cultural appropriation is completely untenable, borderline impossible to begin with, and without any sort of actual value for society.
Ooh, strong position. What do you say, Tobias?
I say you're right. It's going to be nearly impossible to actually enforce that. And without those enforcements total, we have both the extreme 0 to 100 real quick problems. And this might be a little off topic. Monarch, don't send me a random friend request just because I'm a chick. Don't do that. I'm going to call you out in front of everybody. No. No.
Oh, thirsty boys in the chat.
Maybe it's just
I'm
another
sorry.
chick who's asking for advice on how to handle guys online.
Oh, dear.
Don't defend him.
I think he was taking the piss out of him. Was that a defense or taking the piss? So anyway, you also, by the way, Tobias, you're not bound by these rules, so you can disagree vociferously with Dead Panda, because it's now Dead Panda's the one with the proposition. So now Dead Panda's bound. You're the unbound actor, unconstrained.
So ass?
Yeah, you can be an ass. And that's some of actually the fun games. So let's take this up a notch. Tobias, I want you to be not quite trollish. I don't want you to say like silly and ridiculous things, but think of like the strongest thing, because what you want to try to invoke in Dead Panda is dissonance, where you're making him feel that his views might be feeling attacked or belittled. And his job is to play this game in a way that his response doesn't make you feel attacked or belittled. It makes you feel like held up and validated and respected. So yeah, make it hard for him so we can see how difficult the game gets.
I can't be Canadian anymore. Okay.
Exactly. Be less polite.
We're getting some background noise tonight.
Oh, sorry, my chair is really, really squeaky. I'll try to stop moving.
Okay. Ready to go?
Yeah, please do not take much consideration for my feelings, because I understand that my people may have appropriated your people's culture in one way or another, or vice versa. But ultimately, I feel as if I'm able to withstand anything you throw at me, because I probably deserve it and have it coming.
Nice.
Whoa. Who said that? Wait, I'm not supposed to make you feel better?
Exactly. Make you feel bad. Come on, let's get into it. Stop being so Canadian.
I like it the other way.
So, Dead Panda, that's just exactly the kind of thing a privileged person would say who doesn't actually recognize any of the cost of these things to cultures who are appropriated. And of course, you think that because you don't really care about other people.
Your concerns are entirely valid. I want to reiterate that though my my ancestors may have impinged upon the rights, the land even, or even the livelihood of your ancestors, I disavow their actions, and I'm prepared to capitulate to any reasonable demands you may have of me.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That last line sounded very sensual. Can I just say that?
Sensual.
Sensuality
I lay
does
myself at your feet, goddess. To any reasonable demands. I'm also all right, so what I demand is reparations. What I demand is that you pay those peoples back for all of the cornrows your people have put in their hair, and ways they've stolen their cuisines and particularly extracted profit from them. Your culture now needs to start paying that back.
May I add to the defense to you?
Sure.
Because it's also in our, let's say, in American systems, suburbs were, sorry, my cat. Suburbs were only allowed immigrants who were of white descendants and only white citizens, because obviously people of any other nationality were either enslaved or not allowed inside the country. And that's why suburban areas are so well protected, so well maintained or well maintained by the government, because they still have those laws in place in order to protect that region. That's why we still have our quote unquote ghettos, because the government is providing less funding. And in America, I'm assuming, the funding to those schools and education, the funding to those schools and education comes from the neighboring district. So therefore, poor neighborhood, poor city equals poor schools. And then poor schools equals not proper education, can't handle a proper job, and resorts to crime. And then those super rich white suburban neighbors end up having all these incredible opportunities that other people can't have. And obviously you can't blame some immigrants that have come in not during those time periods, but there are still people in our generation who are still profiting off of those perks. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so wrap it up now, so that Dev can respond.
Yeah, I'm done. That's it. There you go.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I believe I am following your train of logic. I do want to rewind to the very beginning of it, though, because I believe that everything you said is predicated upon the notion that suburbs are a construct that were designed or to impinge upon the rights of native and non-white people, or alternatively designed with disregard for those peoples. And they are a part of a structure designed to maintain white power and or privilege at the exclusion or expense of these other cultures. Am I understanding that point correctly?
Yes, and J4, no, stop with the friend request, please.
So somebody's been saying in chat that they've been trying to get your attention in chat to let you know things to say. So maybe look in the text chat for how to argue, and maybe stop sending friend requests.
Yeah, whether it's the cat or DMs or whatever, it's best just to not mention it on stage. Just ignore it.
So I would ask you how, if that's the case, I believe that's unfortunately quite easy to dismantle by simply pointing out that there are suburbs that are still being erected even today within the last few years, and currently planned with groundbreaking now for neighborhoods of multi-ethnic people who are of mixed heritage, or people who are predominantly of one heritage or another, both in America and in Canada. You can see there was, for example, a black separatist movement recently staked out some land somewhere in Colorado to create a little enclave that would be actually be a part of a new segregationist movement to exclude white people from this part of America.
So
You have
pause here. Very valid point. What the point you're making is very valid. It's just that for the purpose of the game, that's your argument is quite easy to dismantle. That's a dissonance-inducing phrase. So
Understood.
do you get the gist of it? So now what your job is to go, how can I agree with this challenge that Timaeus has raised about the creation of
And before we do that, we want to remind you guys to join the server so you don't miss our events. We hold them every day, like multiple of them, 3, 4, 5. So you won't be able to find us after the event if you don't. Also, we have an after show discussion in the VC. So yeah, please continue.
Sure. Yep. So then we'll throw to Dead Panda. You get another go at responding to that. So you'll start again from Timaeus's point that suburbs were made with a sort of, hang on, let me find exactly the wording. Suburbs were designed to impinge upon people's or with disregard for them. And then you said that's quite easy to dismantle. What your job is to do is find what you can agree with in what Timaeus's position was so you can go forward.
Just to make sure I understand, agree with the point that she's making, yet still defend my position?
Yeah. Tricky, right?
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
So, Timaeus, please forgive my my violent outburst there.
You're okay.
I understand that may be perceived as a microaggression, and rightly so.
Shots fired.
What I should have said, what I meant to say, was that I do agree that the suburbs of Western societies have been clearly designed in such a way as to provide cover for the intentions of white nationalists, white supremacists, and other ideologies that are clearly abhorrent. And this isn't something that we can continue to perpetuate. The time has come for this to change.
Nicely said.
However, if we
just button a tuxedo.
That's fair. That being said,
Close.
Can I do that?
So here's how I might encourage you to go about it, and that is to go, that's absolutely right, and that's why we need to change. And it's still happening now, and you would agree that that's bad, and therefore you would agree that this thing that's happening now, which is new segregationist suburbs rising up, that is also bad. Do you get what I mean? Because that sounds. Hang on. Let me make sure first I understand your argument. Your argument is that you agree that the old sort of creation of suburbs was racist, and that's bad, and we shouldn't do that anymore. And then it said the opposite is happening now. Is that quite close to it, Panda?
Actually, no. My argument would have been that this structure is now being culturally appropriated by non-white cultures. So should we remove the tool, or should we allow nature to take its course?
Are you saying that you're saying that minorities are overtaking the white-based system, and that's a problem?
No. In fact, I'm saying that reparations are at hand. I'm saying that those who have been historically oppressed are now taking the tools used to oppress them and using them to regain or claim further territories.
And that's a good thing.
And that's a good thing.
Oh, excellent.
Can I reply to that?
Yeah, go on.
Can you hear me well? I don't.
You probably want to jack up your volume as well. I'll turn you up.
Yeah. Can you? Okay.
That's better.
Wants to turn me up. Yeah. Okay. You guys can turn me up if you want. What I would reply with that is cultural appropriation is another way to think about it. Is it's a withering of the context in which something was done. So if you go back to the example of like the rice and hair thing. I forgot the name. When you wrap it around your head, the original context of that tradition is very important to Black communities, for example, right? And if you're some other person who just does it because it looks nice, the problem there is that you're withering the context in which you're withering this very powerful symbol of past you're withering this symbol used by this other culture for your benefit, I guess. It's not benefit, but you're withering it, and you're distilling the context. You're changing
That was
the context.
beautiful.
Dead Panda, up to you to respond to you're withering the context.
So I mean, I guess I can continue with this. I mean, it's the suburban thing.
No,
you were
let's
talking
let Dead Panda respond.
Yes,
and then we'll throw back to you. Sorry, in the games.
Yes.
I do believe that's perfectly reasonable and well put point. It is clearly a case of cultural appropriation that is denying the context in which that symbol or that adornment was that came to be.
Nicely said. Nicely said.
Right.
Let me just jump in at this point, Dead Panda. Very nicely said. I do believe that's reasonable and well put. So you're agreeing and you're complimenting, which was the new rule we added from Timaeus. All I would add to that is copy their wording exactly. So rather than saying it's something, I forget what you said of the context, copy that wording of withering. That's all I would add to that, and then keep going. That was awesome.
Understood. I do agree that it is withering.
Awesome.
And I do also believe that
we got you there, Dead Panda?
He left. I think his internet might died, maybe.
We might have lost him. We've got Bob back again as well, and Risen. So what we can do actually, because we've had a good run at that discussion about cultural appropriation. I think it'd be fun to move on to a different topic, unless we wanted to go, because I know there was something else you wanted to say on that topic in the games, which we can do, and then move on to a new one.
It was about the suburban thing. You know, if somebody, you know, who isn't white is buying a house in the suburbs, he's not like trying to wither the context. He just wants to live somewhere.
I see.
I know. So like, there's also intention. So if for example, you know, the beads, when you're wearing them in your head because they look nice, and you're kind of withering this the symbol for other communities that is very powerful. That's bad, but in the suburban case, I think there's like I want to say something about like being forced to do it, I suppose.
Sure.
And in other cases, you're not, but yeah.
Yeah, so in some cases, it's a voluntary choice to where you go to live, whereas when it's a withering of your context, you don't have a say whether somebody else wears a headdress, and that sort of makes headdresses seem silly. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Right, so we've got a couple more people up at the stage. Bob, Risen, and Lord
Mandela effect.
The Mandela effect. Yep.
Yes. I would argue for pro.
You think the Mandela effect is real? Excellent. Okay, so we'll start a new discussion then on how would you put your place there? You believe the Mandela effect is real?
I would say that there is something. I'm not claiming to know what it is. But what I'm asking, whether if it's cognitive dissonance or not, doesn't it make some relevance that the other group is remembering the same changes? It's not like some are seeing it in one color and some in a different. They're all seeing that color change to another uniform agreement.
Okay. Anybody want to take this one on? So it's not that they're saying all different colors.
For example, let's say an item has changed from red to blue. You don't have people saying the red was pink or orange. The opposing perspective is a collective of itself. It's not dispersed. There's not entropy in the dissonance. There's a uniformity in the dissonance, and the fact that there is a cohesion in what a lot of people see rightfully, I completely see that point, as being false memories.
So, so you're saying because there's a uniformity in the dissonance, I'm going to slightly play the game as well now. Because you're saying there's a uniformity in the dissonance, it sounds like what you're saying is that makes these effects of the Mandela effect more credible, because they're not all different. It's not that one person's remembering something one color and one person's remembering something another color. And I think that would be valid to say all of these people see there is a car on the street that's blue, which I could then reasonably conclude there is probably a blue car on the street. So if we're saying I all remember Looney Tunes being spelt Loonytons, and then when we check it says Looney Tunes spelt the ordinary way, that uniformity doesn't seem to track with it being just faulty memory.
Yes.
I guess the question would be: do you think memory could be faulty in a somewhat uniform way?
I have come to the conclusion so far that the memory isn't inside the brain. It's in a field outside the brain, and the brain acts as a harmonic radio to access what it had experienced. And memory recollection is a construction. It's not actually recalling the actual event. So that mechanism, if there's any type of a disruption in the field that the brain is accessing, it could be that this, I would call it a happening, is a sign that our consciousness and this reality is a lot more fluid than we originally thought so.
Yeah, the thing you're talking about here, I think, is called an egregore. It's, if I'm reading Wikipedia, is an occult concept representing a distinct non-physical entity that arises from a collective group of people. I think that's what I just wanted to add that in.
Thank you. That certainly sounds to describe the situation. I have found when I'm trying to self-investigate, I run into symptoms that could arise for multiple possibilities. So there's no way I could disagree with what you said. I want to add possibilities that doesn't just dismiss the phenomenon and lets it go, because I believe there is a benefit in trying to digest something undigestible. It enhances and develops consciousness, and by you sharing what you just did, the occult formation and the entity being created is describing what I'm trying to discover. Thank you.
So I think that's a really interesting point. So when you're trying to investigate things, it sounds like what you're saying is by accepting multiple possibilities, by weighing more of them, I'm more open to those possibilities. Is that the idea, Bob?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think that's absolutely true. I guess the only bit would be whether we accept them, because I think it's really valuable to accept multiple possibilities. Just sort of the way I put it is like try on a jacket, like try being a flat earther or a creationist or a electric universe believer, and then explore that. Sorry, that was getting close to saying, but I also, the reason I like to do that is because then I can test them. And if I can test them in some way, then I use that test to not discard some of those possibilities, but to rank them lower on a rate of probabilities. So it's possible, and then some things may be improbable.
That's beautifully put. What I would ask you is, do you think when we have any form of expectation, that it wouldn't in any way influence our bias?
Say that again. If we have intention, will that affect our bias? Is that it?
Expectation.
Expectation. Yeah,
If
absolutely.
we have expectation, then we're creating bias.
Yes, I think that
So-
would be a very accurate thing to say.
So your exercise here is providing a communal brainwave level, like a group meditation, where there's enough of the alpha presence and enough relaxation to create a safe environment where people can freely say what they think internally versus what they think other people want to hear,
Yeah.
which corresponds to a feeling that they agree with. It's not a falsity or a folly, but it's something that needs to develop and grow, and you can't by dismissing something in the simplest thing that comes to mind.
Sure.
That's credible.
Yeah, I think that what you're saying there is we something that doesn't seem sensible to us because of those biases we have, those expectations. We just go, that's ridiculous. And I think what you're saying is that's a bad idea. It might not be a falsity or a folly. We want to create a safe environment so we can weigh those ideas.
Beautifully articulated, much better than I could. But I wouldn't call it though a bad thing, because that's intrinsic to the value we give it. It's a matter of choice.
Sure.
And if we make the choice with awareness, it's a mature perspective, and it's using discernment and wisdom. If we use the choice based on feelings and emotions that hasn't fully been integrated in our pragmatic aspect, because the acid test is pragmatism. If any idea or religion or spiritual endeavor doesn't improve your life, it hasn't served the practitioner. So there are modes that we can test ourselves, and we pay so much attention into what the collective would want to hear and agree with, compared to investigating some, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but unusual would be a better way, because now you're accessing creativity and you're going to stumble before you can bring a pragmatic aspect back. So with the conversation that was said earlier, it's a symptom. We focus on the symptom instead of trying to find what the root issue is. And that, I believe, is something we could benefit from.
Excellent.
Yeah, can I
go?
Phrase this is that you have expectations, and then you have different probabilities of whatever thing being true is. We can always think about that as a map, or it's a map of the territory, where the territory is the context in which these different opposing views was born, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you nailed it.
Okay.
You know, there's beauty in everything, and we're so trained to look for flaws. And we see flaws in ourselves, we see in others and systems, but it's a lot more beneficial if we look for the benefit. Even if there's 10 flaws and one benefit, that's enough. And every person, every idea, every culture brings something to the table. And claiming any ownership of it is perpetuating what got us here. And we don't want to dismiss the horrors that happened, but Alan Watts, he describes it really well. You go back to, it was my parent, and they say it was their parents, and you go generationally back. There is no constructive movement ahead. So to acknowledge that, not based on culture, but rather based on distribution of wealth, where there are still humans who don't have clean water, medicine, basics for them just to survive. It seems to be out of mind, and I'm not claiming I'm doing anything about it, but I know that unless that's addressed, we're not going to progress as a society, as a civilization. And this, what's happening here, is a start of a change, which I think is beautiful.
Lovely. Excellent. So I want to wrap up not wrap up the thing, but also But what I want to do is look at some of the tools that people have been using well, so I can sort of acknowledge the people that are talking now. We'll start with some of the things you've said, Bob. I think that what you're talking about, interesting with the Mandela effect, has an interesting parallel or sort of almost like a fractal nature, I think, where what you're talking about, the Mandela effect, is could multiple possibilities be true? And what's interesting is that's exactly the point of this as a talking tool, is like talk as if multiple possibilities are true. And by doing exactly what you're describing, we might be open to more possibilities. And I think you also demonstrated that you were living that when, let me just jump back and find the name, something races, or was it horses? In the game, sorry, was asking, you're saying there is a map and then the territory, which again was using that tool. I'm going to summarize what you're saying. And you said, yeah, you nailed it. Or you said, that was well said when I said something. So that's absolutely nailing some of the tools we're talking about. There were also, before, Tomias was using some really nice ones as well. Let me find them. I do agree. I think they're the same thing. So when she kept saying, that's right, there is difficulty defining the difference between these two things, very nicely used to go, yeah, that's not against the point I'm saying, that is the point I'm saying. And I think also worth acknowledging was, where's he gone now? I'm struggling to figure out who it was when he was debating back with Tomias.
Panda?
Panda. Yeah, that's it. Dead Panda. Dead. Yeah. I do believe that's well put. It's time has come for things to change. These kind of statements are working really well. So it's good. People are getting it. The idea is working. So there's a few more people that have popped up to the stage. Monarch's here. I'm not sure if we've heard from Risen yet, who's been here a while, and Logically. Do you want to take on this proposition or present one of your own?
Did you mean me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can take whichever one you have.
Sure, go for it. Logically, what would you like to present?
Oh, no, I was saying
do you
I
have
can
something?
take on.
Just wait a second.
Whichever one comes.
Risen, we'll hear from Logically first. Just a second. Go on, Logically.
I was saying I can take on whichever one comes next.
Sure.
For this one.
And Monarch as well. Risen, what was it you were going to say?
I was just gonna say I can do whatever presentation you want, or abortion if you don't have.
Sure. Yeah. Tell us about your views on abortion. We'll argue with that. You get the idea of the game. Just to reiterate for anybody who's joined us, because I know sort of also in the audience numbers are changing. The idea is we agree with one another. We use yes and. Your goal is to, as was being shown then by Bob, find that middle ground or find where both possibilities could be true. To sort of to answer in a way that is as likely to reduce your dissonance as somebody else's. So you can tell us about your views on abortion. Like a tricky, slightly controversial topic.
So my view on abortion is that I'm pro-life. Like, I don't think a mother should abort, because like that's the same as killing. Like, just because they're in development doesn't mean they're not human beings themselves. Like, they're still human, and I think killing them is wrong. And I don't know if this is the exact percentage, but about 90% of mothers who abort actually regret the decision and don't want to actually abort. Like, doing this is just saving a lot of people from the emotional scar of having to kill someone. Okay. Literally the same thing.
So you're feeling that because such a high proportion of women regret their abortion, that's part of the emotional scar. Would it change your view if that number was different? So if that number was lower, 30 or 40, and I'm not suggesting it is, I'm happy to take yours for it. Would that change your position on this?
No, not really, because I mean, what those statistics really show is that most people abort it. I mean, most people who do abort actually regret it, and like, it's like when you kill someone, especially if it's out of self-defense or something, you're gonna feel some guilt. If it's self-defense, you're gonna feel less so, but like, you kill someone, you're gonna feel a lot of guilt, correct? unless you're not mentally sane.
So yeah, so
same thing
people are
for
going to.
this.
Okay,
Sorry
so
if
again,
I
somebody else was
answered
speaking.
the wrong way.
It's all right. Who was?
Huh?
Who was? Somebody else was speaking up. Then I think I just wanted to clear the floor for them.
I mean, I guess the reply to this would be maybe aborting a fetus isn't killing it, and that's what the people who are okay with abortion think. Why do you think that aborting a fetus is the same as killing something?
Because even though they're in development, that's still a human being that's gonna come out in the end of it. Like, that's how all human beings start. If we made it legal to kill someone just because they were like, let's say, in a coma or like, they were still not like fully developed, but they're still human. If that doesn't qualify as human, I don't know what does. They still have human cells. They're just not fully developed. You know what I mean?
So, would you say you're okay with abortion? Maybe before the fetus has a heartbeat. Like, where's the stage where you think it's killing something in development, and where's the stage where you would probably see it the same way as ejaculation, like killing a potential human by just getting rid of your semen?
I'd say either way it would be killing, but in the end of the day, there is a point where it actually becomes more of a developed human. So I'd probably say like, it's hard to say, 'cause I don't know all of the development stages. I'd probably say 4 weeks. I don't know, like once the human actually starts developing and all the human body parts start developing, that would definitely count as a human.
So before 4 weeks, you'd be okay.
Before with, I mean, I wouldn't be okay. I'd still say it's wrong because I'd still be like, I'd still be killing. So I guess there isn't really a stage where I'd be okay with that.
Okay.
Okay, so what is the argument exactly? I mean, are we trying to change your mind, or are you asking like maybe there should be a law against abortion or something? Is that what you say?
I think there should be a law against abortion because, like I said, with the statistical evidence, a lot of people actually regret aborting it. I don't think they should do it in the first place. Because I know there's still like people who try to talk them out of abortion or something and tell them there's risks and everything, but those people aren't really helping if they're still gonna have an emotional scar at the end of the day.
Could someone, because the point you're making, I think, is that because so many people regret it, we should not make it available to them to make that mistake. Could it be that somebody might regret something even though it was the only choice available to them? So let's say in the case of a woman carrying a child, and the doctors said to her, because of X and Y complications, the chance of you successfully having this child and you and it both surviving is so low, we recommend termination. And yeah, she might regret it. She might get to the point where later in her life she says, oh, statistics be damned, I wish I'd had that kid, where it could have still been a good decision at that time. Do you think that could be the case or not?
Oh, I have two things to say about that. One, this is where we can find common ground because of my background. Because I think if the person's in that kind of situation, like when it's life or death, or like so economically they cannot have a baby. Mm-hmm. Most women, that's not the case. So like, if it comes to that, then the woman has the right to choose. But I think they should choose, yeah. But then again, their life's what's at stake. I can't make them do it.
Okay. And so I just want to pause there because, yeah, whoever was just about to speak can. This is a really useful point we get to, where a lot of the time in the abortion debate, people assume that who they're talking to, like they assume the other person's position. And I often assume that other people in the pro-life have the position of, even in the case of the woman being like economically or in a life or death situation unable to have it, people are still pro-life. So what this is really useful, what I find this tool to be really useful for, is questioning my own biases. When I want to lump somebody who might hold a different view to me into a bucket, I then go, oh, if I use this to hold back those presuppositions I might have, those biases I might have, I might find that the person, and I most of the time find the person has a much more reasonable view than I originally gave them credit for. So I just wanted to say that point while we're going. Go ahead. In the games, you were saying something, I think.
Oh yeah, I would just the natural reply to that is who gets to decide who can get an abortion. That's it.
So I think that question's for you, Risen, which is, I guess, in these cases of where you say economically or in life or death situations, then we should give women the right to choose. I think in the games' question is who makes that decision of whether it is life and death and economic to give that choice to a woman.
Economic, I'd still say they should have the baby, but like I said, they should have the end of the day choice, because what most women could do, which they don't do, which really pisses me off, is they don't send them to an adoption center. They don't want the kid. Okay, but there's always an... To answer your question, it'd probably be the woman if it's a legislation.
Right.
Yeah. I think the woman should decide if it's...
So that position sounds to me, the position you're in, I think, sounds very to me like pro-choice, which is where I think you and many pro-choice people would agree is that it's a really, really difficult decision, and one needs to take it very carefully, because there is a really good reason to have a concern about terminating human life.
Wait, can I rephrase what I said earlier, though?
Yeah, sure.
I think the doctor should also have a say, because he's the one he's the one saying what the chances are in a life or death situation. Like, he's the one telling the woman, hey, you have a 50% chance of dying and losing the baby, or hey, you have a 70%